In Toronto.
You know, just in Toronto, having a great time talking to filmmakers, BIPOC film or Black Indigenous people of color filmmakers, because BIPOC makes it small and cute and lessens everybody's participation in that little term. So just chatting with a bunch of Black, Indigenous, and people of color filmmakers and having a grand time. How about you?
How about me? Well, I'm all the way in Edmonton,
Uh-huh.
speaking to all of you today. It's my first time in Alberta. Can't wait to get out on the road and hit Jasper and Banff and all that. But we have with us first, we're talking web series today. And we have a great collection of creators who are going to be speaking about what they've done for Real World Film Festival this year. I'd like everyone to introduce themselves and where they are and what you consider your neighborhood. And this will play into our discussion later, as we know one of our films is about neighborhood, so to speak. So I'm in Edmonton. My name is Marina Hanna. I'm in Edmonton. I'm being hosted today by Sparrow Spaces. It's a co-working space. So thanks to Sparrow Spaces. If anyone's from Edmonton, they'll know what I'm talking about. And let's see who else is here. Aisha, you go next. Oh, I should say, but in Toronto, I'm in the Junction Triangle.
Okay, so, hi, my name is Aisha. I am in Toronto, and I reside in Little Italy, actually. It's my hood.
Nice.
Yeah.
Let's see who else is out there. We have Denver.
Yeah, hi. My name is Denver Jackson. I am the director and animator for Somnius, and I reside in BC, Victoria, BC, Vancouver Island, which is mostly like a touristy city. So, yeah.
Cool.
Hi, my name is Alan. I am the writer and producer of the Somnius with short/web series. I currently live in Vancouver, BC, in a very like crossroadsy area of Granville and Broadway, which is just every bus that exists stops there. But I used to live where Denver lives, and we've been friends for a long time. So old hood homies.
Yeah, we'll hear more about your friendship later and how it came into And what about our next stop? Next stop, folks.
Jabari Weeks, writer, director, and co-creator of Next Stop.
Tishan Tapambwa, as well, co-creator, writer, producer. Next Stop.
We're Lauren Ossington or whatever.
Pretty
it's
much
gentrification. It's not going to look like it did last year.
Yeah.
So.
As I said, College of Bathurst, I'm like, but it's getting so gentrified that I'm like,
we're all very close.
Yes.
We got a Starbucks, so it's the end.
I'm Phil Whitmer. I am also a co-creator, co-director, and of Next Stop, and I also compose all the music for Next Stop. I am currently in the far east part of Mississauga. You walk 10 minutes and you're in Etobicoke. I'm surrounded by parks and creeks, general woodland. I think I might be the youngest person in my neighborhood right now. So it's a time. It's a good time.
Well, that's great.
So thank you guys all for being here, and congratulations to the team of Next Stop for, I feel like, well, you it's now available on CBC Gem, but I feel like you have a second season commissioned by them. Is that correct?
We can't quote unquote speak on that, but it is in development. We're learning all this NDA talk.
Gotcha.
Yeah, well, let's take it back to the beginning. So
you even said that, silly. Sorry, Marina, you go.
We be chilling.
We're not going to get very far in this webinar. It's just going to be cracking jokes the whole way.
Please ask your question.
Let's go back to the beginning and talk about the making of and the inception of your ideas. For LA and Denver, I know that you had a short film named Somnius first, but how did you come together? Previously, we had talked about your film. We talked about world building and how that all came together. Where did you conceive of Somnius? How and where did you start and where are you now with it?
We conceived of Somnius in Victoria in a cafe called Avalon. I remember it was a group of us, and when one of our friends was going away, he was going to move, I think, to Scotland, and we said we should like do the thing that we do, which is, or did at the time, which was grab a camera, go into our backyards and try and film something, or go to a park and film a thing. So we wrote the concept, and it was just like as an excuse to use like the environments, like parks and things around us, but still treat it like a sci-fi. I said, well, what if it was like a holodeck type situation? And I wrote something very, very simple. It was kind of like a reverse heist, or like a home invasion kind of thing. And I didn't.
Usually Alan doesn't write simple things. So I had to, it was me saying, please make this really simple, not VFX heavy. And so I can, stay alive.
And the result was I wrote what would end up being the most VFX he had ever done in a film. Every shot was a VFX shot. And I was like this? Is this right? And he just went, yeah, sure, fine. All right. Yeah. So, but after we kind of made that, it acted like a film school kind of event for us in our respective fields. Him probably more so than me, because I wrote it and kind of like learned what a film set was. He had like a slightly better understanding of how that stuff worked, and at the very least, he's a lot better than me at baking it. So he was directing it, and then he did all the post editing and visual effects and things like that. And we worked with our friend Mark Junker on music and things like that. So
this was like our first time actually having a crew, and camera operators, lighters, and all that stuff on a film set.
Yeah.
And did the animation, when you guys decided to get into animation, is that your influence, Denver?
I've always been interested in animation. I've been interested in all types of mediums. I still want to do live action films, but my career has just taken me onto animation. So I think maybe 7-8 years back, I did my first short, and I treated that as my animation school, where I would take every step of the process of developing an animation, storyboarding, animatics, keyframing, in-betweens, and I just studied animation through doing one single short. And then I've just been doing it since, and we always loved the idea of Somnius, and I think Story Hive was one of the applications we pitched to, which we did a 5-minute short, and then it got picked up by Chorus for a development deal. And we worked on that. Elaine, you want to go into the pitch Bible?
Yeah, sure. Page 1, chapter 1. No, what that ended up being for me was like a really like crash course kind of event on how to really flesh out a concept, and not just world build, but like character, story, plot, kind of all of it, and then also how to effectively communicate how all of these things are informed by each other. It became an incredibly like invaluable kind of experience for me. In a big bad way.
Some of the Next Stop guys now, and wanted to know, because I know what some of the common elements between you and the Somnius crew is. You started the project yourself. It wasn't commissioned. You didn't pitch it. Can you talk a little bit about that? Sort of, was there a cafe where you were all together at one point?
Yes, actually, enough.
Coming up with this story?
Yeah, I mean, I think, yeah, it started here at our apartment and in the editing suite of my prior job with actually one of the lead actors, Jordan. Yeah, I think we always had the conversation in terms of like what type of content we'd like to make, because where we were at, they were just not servicing specifically Black Toronto content, or Black content in general. And I think we were just always trying to figure out like, what's the blueprint for this? How could we do this? Would we want to pitch this? And we quickly were like, nah. And then we decided to kind of develop it and just like, well, what are some key core stories that we're always thinking about? We're always thinking about how we're broke. And obviously, during the time when we were shooting this, most of us were laid off or in between jobs. So it's just like, okay, well, what type of stories can we tell that we'd be interested in? And initially, again, we thought we were going to do like some HBO Room 401, like every anthology in one apartment. That idea sucked. It was trash. I'm glad we never did it. And then I think it was you who brought up like the Patty conversation. And we just kind of we just argue all the time. And then we just kind of decide like, oh, well, if we were to do an episode and something that's feasible, why don't we just have an argument about these patties and use it to kind of discuss like the East and West End beef and all the things we're thinking about in terms of like rent. And then it just kind of like, we just kind of went off of that. So then we got the next 3 episodes.
I was gonna say, like we always knew that we were gonna do live action.
There was no option.
There was no option. I was like, we don't know animation yet.
Yes.
Yet.
We get to know each other because you guys said you're anime heads, and Somnias is basically like.
Yeah, and we did.
I know we did.
We imagine.
But pretty much like some of our inspirations were Cecile Lemeke's Aki and Sawfish, Issa Rae's The Misadventures of an Awkward Black Girl. And we just liked how how both those web series just kind of like were able to just put the viewer into that world. So obviously, I Can Sawfish is London, England, and Issa Rae show was Compton, LA, or just California. Yeah. So we just wanted something that would represent Toronto in that aspect in a web series format, and that's how we kind of like landed onto Next Stop.
Can I ask? I feel like the way, because I also, this is like going back to the Toronto Men's talking away, if that's okay with you, Marina. Looking at language specifically because Somnius doesn't actually have any words in it, but speaks volumes. And then also you guys, the Next Stop peeps, tap into like I don't want to say a subculture because I don't actually like the idea of, when you say the word subculture, it pushes people to the margins by virtue of saying it's underneath something else.
It's a different Toronto.
Exactly, a different version of Toronto that's like not necessarily on like available for people to see because the majority of content is Eurocentric. So can you guys both speak about Somnius, about like the lack of words and like that choice to tell it without words, and then also can the Next Stop people, our lovely team, can you guys speak about how important the use of language was in your storytelling?
Yeah. So the pilot episode series actually does have words, but for the pilot episode, the script did also have words, but I just I read it, and it was actually made right at the start of the pandemic, and things were a little iffy with voice actors, and so we didn't know if we could actually record anyone during this, like at the very beginning of this pandemic and the lockdown. And so I kind of looked at the script and kind of thought if I could do it without any dialogue. And that's where I went with it. And I told Alan, and
I shrugged. I think it works. Like, I don't like, this kind of happens anyway. Like we'll sit down and jam and come up with concepts, and then I'll hand something in, and he'll, as soon as he starts to storyboard it to be an animated thing, he treats that like the next draft of the thing. So he is just as involved in the story process as not. So when he said, like, based on these kind of constraints and concerns that we had, can we do it without words or anything like that? It's like, if we can tell the story just as effectively while working around that hurdle, then yeah, hell yeah. And that was the result, is that he basically animated the next draft of it. It didn't have any dialogue in it, and I was like, well, I should write more things with fewer words in it.
Well, that's the thing. Like, I was just really struck by like the level of visual storytelling, because you didn't have words to fall back on. Like, the arc of it and what happens is so clear, and like I just like thought like that's I guess a credit to you guys for being able to do that. And I guess next up, what are your thoughts on like how language influenced what you guys were making, or how like language is so entrenched in it? So if you can speak to that.
Yeah, I mean, it's super important in terms of like the specific inflections. Like, you know, someone can say, "Are you dumb?" and literally like mean like, "Are you actually dumb?" or "Are you dumb?" is more like kind of friendly. Like, did that actually happen?
Hold on. I'm gonna, bro. Are you dumb? That's what my brother says.
Hey, that was a good one. That was good.
That wasn't bad. That wasn't bad.
Peter Man's den, right?
You and no, you would be a sweeter.
Sorry.
Wow.
Back to
That was a compliment.
Yeah. Back to language.
But yeah, no, words are super important. And yeah, for us, again, and Tashawn can talk about it much better. Just like, we're always trying to skirt between the middle, because again, I think definitely in the last decade, Toronto slang has become more popularized for good and bad. And we get like a lot of sketches of people actually from here putting on like kind of this animated show of it. And then again, on the other end, there's ones where it's a bit too earnest and it's almost like they're trying to like steer clear of it. So for us, it's always just like, again, when these people are talking, it's exactly how they would talk. So like slang and inflections, it's just like, it comes from Scarborough, it comes from, again, areas of the West End, even though I don't want to give you all that much credit. And it's just, again, it's just always finding a way to like add color to sentence. And again, it's built from the diasporas, like Caribbean diaspora, African, specifically Somali. And it's just, again, it's just, what are the sentences that are gonna get a rise out of somebody or bring out an emotion from them? And,
was it scripted then? Because a lot of like my favorite episode actually is the woman telling the story about the boyfriend, the girl, like the when they're at the crosswalk and like the man with the girlfriend starts looking at her and she's like, "What do you want?" So how much of it was scripted? Did you just tell your actors to just go and like, and because of the fact that they like share the experience of being able to speak like that, they were just able to do so, or was it scripted?
No, definitely. So I think in terms of like selecting the actors, in terms of like selecting the actors, I guess the thing is we don't have actor money, but we know that we have access to a lot of great people that are like heavily involved in podcasts, or they just do other things on the side. And we know that if we were to put them in front of the camera, they would really sell the characters really well. So Vanessa is a really great person in front of the camera. Jordan is a really great person in front of the camera. Millette, and you know, Denise, Xander, that come later in the show in Duppy and Pool. Those are also great actors. But in terms of like actually scripting it, we always had like a base.
Yeah.
And then we would
we have lines,
yeah. And then we actually even mentioned this. Whenever something felt awkward, that is when we would tell the actors like, okay, why don't you put this in your voice and make this more natural? So some of the moments that I feel like, I mentioned this before, like some of the moments that are even like some of my favorite moments, those were like just improvised in the moment.
Yeah, people like going off the script in general, like just giving them that freedom because they're inhabiting those characters too, but those characters are very, it's what you said, heavily based on their experiences. So, you know, if they have a more natural line compared to whatever we wrote in the script, we would usually go with that. And then those lines would change as well. So there was like some improv in there as well. Like a line would change from take to take. And then it's just like, okay, but this feels natural and also does feel very like Toronto. Like it would have more character than we ever would have imagined. And also still gets to the point of what that character is trying to articulate.
Yeah. And for Mosquito, that actually is a story that happened to Vanessa, but like the way Vanessa is just a great storyteller in terms of like being able to like convey a message. And I was just like, oh, hey, let's do that for Mosquito. Like, let's just put you in front of the camera and like, let's just go from there. But we rehearsed it before, and then on the day off, it was just like, okay, now time to release.
I wanted to ask both of you, both of these stories take place in very distinct worlds, even though, Aisha, I think you brought it up, it's a Toronto that not everyone sees, and Somnius is not a world that none of us have seen yet, right? So I would like each of you, I want to move the discussion into some of more the business and industry part of the series. But before we do that, I want to talk about what the meaning of your world is. To the next stop, what is Toronto to you? What is the meaning? And for Somnius, what is Somnius?
I mean, for us, as we always say, like Toronto is like this vibrant, miserable place that we just happen to inhabit. And I think for the next stop world, again, and Tashawn said it earlier, it's creating worlds that, again, that we're building, but it's also worlds that are familiar to certain parts of Toronto. And again, even if you do not inhabit those areas, you know those bus stops, you know exactly what we're talking about when we say the TTC is trash. So,
Sorry.
So I think, again, for us, it's just sometimes we want to ground in as much reality as possible. Again, the emotions will be a bit heightened, but it's just like, you know these experiences, you know this world, maybe you do not know these people. Let's build it out for you. And also, again, put a little bit of ourselves in it. And then again, you have episodes like Duppy where we just take it to the extreme, where it's just like depression now manifests into like a ghost. Yeah. But again, those are still like intimate feelings that people feel. And I think Toronto has a really great way of like taking really tiny emotions, or really big emotions actually, and just kind of like smoothing them over and making them look boring. So for us, it's just like, yeah, let's blow it up as loud as the people that we actually know. And again, just kind of in contrast to the like, you know, quiet, cold, like sombering and like looking out windows and sad, like Canadian films that we've seen.
Oh my God. I think it's really interesting though, because Marina and I were speaking about this, and Marina had like used, because in some ways she had made reference to Sex in the City, because like these are women that are like, we love New York. Yeah. Whereas like you just like, we want to go where we're seen and there's opportunity. And I was like, I also feel like a lot of the experience of Toronto, or experience like of a city, is directly linked to your place in society and privilege. Like if you live in Manhattan and you're like a woman, a white woman, and like you have a great job and you like in a way, like why wouldn't you love living in Manhattan if you have endless funds and just like right? However, like mirroring like what's going on in Next Stop, like people have to take the bus, and like where the subway does not run. Like even if you juxtapose like Rosedale, and like because like your experience of the TTC is markedly different if you live by a subway station versus if you have to take a really long bus in the winter to get somewhere. And then I understand why people are insulted when you see the subway train go by and it says the best.
Oh yeah,
best transit of the air. Transit of the air.
I've never been so angry.
Yeah. Like your experience of the city does in some ways, and in some ways it's very astute observation, and like kind of makes me upset because I agree. Where I'm like, these characters are like seemingly like young Black people who are trying to make their way in a society where it's kind of in a lot of ways systemically been set up for them to fail. So of course they're be a little bit annoyed and like not really love where they live. So I just like thought that was a very interesting thing that you guys had managed to unearth with the way that you depicted Black Torontonians-ism.
Yeah, no, because thank you. Again, we're always thinking about like, we're always on the ground level. I think a lot of like the big imports, when you think about like a Drake, I almost said Tory Lanez. We do not speak of that man.
That's who Tory Lanez anymore.
Yeah. So, but again, like a lot of things that have brought a lot of attention, specifically, again, like there was the infamous article that says like Drake brings in like $1 billion in terms of tourism dollars. Like, again, that is off the back of the culture that we create. And we're a small segment that's regularly and routinely ignored. So just like, there's a lot of people enjoying like the high rise and sky rise and condos. And like, I'm sure Toronto is fantastic to them. But for us who are like, we're continuing trying to innovate, keep things interesting for ourselves. Like it's always at a ground level. And I think we love the people, or at least some of the people that we know within the city. But I think our relationship with the city is kind of one that's like, it's really toxic. And it's just like, it takes from us. And just by proxy that we may not have anywhere else to go at the moment, that we're just kind of stuck here. So it's like, damned if you do, damned if you don't.
Yeah.
Is Somnius rooted in the real world at all? Or is it purely something of your imagination? And what is to
Somnius is, I think, like objectively, like, or rather, the objective of it is like to be an entirely fantastic world that is rooted in real world philosophy. So you can, in the same way that like the best science fiction creates something completely new, but also incredibly familiar as soon as they communicate how it works and functions. Like the outer space for us was like a blank canvas. The story of Somnius is about someone taking responsibility of a ship that can replicate any environment that she's been to or interacted with. So it's about going to different places and then reflecting on it. It's about going to encountering different people and reflecting on those interactions in a tangible way, turning that like the metaphor of a memory into a literal tangible thing that you can see and hold and then take and turn on an angle and explore in kind of interesting ways. So while it's not like directly about the specific social issues that I may experience in Vancouver or Denver and Vic or y'all on the East Coast and stuff. I also did like sit down and take time to create different planets and different planets and cities and environments that are all big in scope but lacked something. And it's the thing that it doesn't have, like that becomes its flaw, that becomes the thing that you start to inspect and understand. It's like in Vancouver here, we have as they were just saying, loads of the high rises and towers and things like that, where people up top live really, really good, but those structures are built in our like downtown east side. So like those structures are literally built on top of people who they have every intention to ignore. So if you create a character who then flies in, sees that, experiences that, and then gets to take that with her in a format that she can like really like manifest and look at and explore. It's a different way to kind of explore social issues in a general sense that may affect all of us in different ways, I guess.
And also the main story. It's mainly the overall arc of the series. The themes of it is empathy and seeing other points of views. And so the villain of the series, you come to like, you have to see both sides of the coin, is what we were strongly attached to throughout the whole thing. Yeah, which hasn't been made yet, but yeah. Like
the goal of the overarching season is to how can you turn empathy into almost like a superpower or like a high level kung fu style, right? Like, you know, like focus your ki and understand someone instead of shooting a fireball out of your hands, right?
Denver, how do you start animating when you're, I mean, is there one thing you will draw first that will then lead to the world? Or where does it start? Such for someone who doesn't illustrate.
Right. I start with the script and I kind of just storyboard it from there. And I kind of come up with, if I have ideas for certain things within the world, I'll start boarding it out and then I'll converse with Alan and tell him my ideas. And then he'll add to that and then we both add to ideas about the world and start building things out from there. Alan has usually very specific ideas about the world. I'm more of I'm going to come up with something because it fits the story, and it has to, like, if it fits Alan's idea, then great. If it doesn't, then we have to work it out. But I kind of start from the storyboards and then move to animatics. So storyboarding is kind of like the design process as well, where I come up with all the design work is with characters and vehicles and things like that. Yeah.
Segue into, because Marina also wanted to talk about like the idea of making a series, and like one of the things that I thought was so innovative about your both of your respective projects, but like more so Somnius, because like animation is so expensive from my understanding. It's like, why did you guys decide to choose a web series as opposed to trying to put something together and like pitching it for like a half-hour broad drama, if that makes sense? And so I think that question for both projects is a thing that we can look at, because I'm curious, is it like this, we know it only exists, like we know it lives in this short format, or was it like we think this could be bigger but we want to just make something right now while we can? Like where were you, like why web series? Is that an okay question? Like, is that kind of pertaining to what you're thinking about, Marina?
Yeah, absolutely. That you were going exactly where I wanted to go with that, Aisha. Last time, you weren't with us in our last discussion, but I was asking everyone what they're watching now streaming wise, just because this streaming platform, now more available to everyone, to creators anywhere in the world now. It's something to think about when you want to be a creator. You don't just have to think of a short film anymore or a drama series. You could have a limited series on streaming. You could have a short series on streaming. There's so many options, and it's seemingly more accessible. I don't know if that's the case. I would like to hear your perspective, but let's start with where you were asking, Aisha, like, I guess essentially why you chose to do a series
like why a series and then why a web series from there.
Yeah.
I think like streaming, in terms of streaming, like format seems to be going out the window. Like even length of shows, like the 22-minute or 24-minute episodes, or 40-minute for an hour length or whatever, that all that length is going out. It's streaming, you can have episodes to whatever you need the story to be in that length. And web series, felt right for Somnius, felt like it fit, and we decided to go with it. We're still pitching it to try and get more funding, because yes, it is expensive, animation. And even though I animated this one episode myself, it would be great to actually get help. I don't want to be spending 10 years making one episode. So
I guess that's the question. It's like, so then let's say I'm a billionaire. It's a really nice life up here. So let's say I'm a billionaire and I give you a lot of money to go make a thing. Are you still going to do short format, or are you going to try and do a half an hour drama or an hour drama? I guess that question, because like Phoebe Waller-Bridge, who made Fleabag, I really respect her, because like Amazon was like, we need a second season of Fleabag, and she was at like this fever pitch of being so great, and she was like, nah, dude, like, because I don't necessarily think the story needs it. I can't see a way of telling the story in a way that does it justice. And as storytellers or filmmakers, you have to, like, everything you're doing is for the sake of the story. So I'm just curious, like, if I had sacks of money, would you still consider making a short format, or would you extend it? And like, that's, I guess, where I'm like curious about.
Yeah, whatever serves the story, right? If the story needs to be a certain length, that's what it's going to be. And if you had, like you said, sacks of money, it would just improve the quality of that short.
I think regardless of the format it's in, money equals time in that sense. The less of it you have, the more of it you're going to have to spend to make it on your own. So it still kind of renders the format like not as relevant anymore, as long as Like you look at the story first, and what does the story need, and what format would best serve it, and then you apply whatever funding you get to make the best version of that thing.
Mm.
Aisha, if you were to-
I've tried.
No,
Oh,
please.
sorry.
I was just gonna say I don't actually have sacks of money, so I'm sorry, but please.
Oh, it's fine. It's
I was
fine.
like, if you were to ask me this question 2 years ago, I would reluctantly say, I'll still do a short. Just because I feel like for us, Next Stop was meant just to make a name for ourselves. We are entering into this industry now, and we wanted people to we wanted a body of work behind our names. And we felt like Next Up was the easiest way to do that. Obviously, the anthology structure as well, it gives us opportunity to play around with structure and storytelling, and actually get our voices out there. So 2 years ago, I would have been like, yeah, I'm gonna still make short form content. But in this whole process, I've become, all of us have become more confident throughout, and like learning just about like the filmmaking process and pre-production, post-production, filming. We've made some names of ourselves, and we've kind of like started looking at how you can take some of these stories even further. So if you would ask me today, I would take that money and go straight to a 90-minute film. But like, I guess that's just like it's a timing thing. Yeah.
So you talk about how you funded Next Stop yourself.
Yes.
Right?
Next Stop
Would
was
you
funded. Yeah.
ever do that again? If you had the choice. I mean,
I'm gonna say no, but like, patient,
yeah, hopefully,
so
yeah.
I would probably like. I'm always 2 seconds away from like, I don't feel like waiting.
My guy. Listen, Toronto Man's coming out. You deserve, as an artist, my guy, to be paid for your work.
no.
Do not ever leverage your condo if you have one, or your car, or whatever, or credit cards to make a thing. It is not worth it. This like I live and die, but like the white dude with the ball cap being like, yeah, just like get a credit card and like go and like
Oh my God.
and like
But where I was going with that is less about, obviously I know that it was probably a great sacrifice to fund this project yourself, but where I was going with it is you were completely in control. You were 100% in control.
Yeah, that's also true. Yeah.
And given, say, there's one thing to say pitch to a network or a streaming platform, and some streaming platforms are better than others in terms of what kind of creative control that they allow the directors and filmmakers to have. But you're going to go from a project from having 100% control to potentially having someone from a company give you notes.
Yeah.
So talk to that.
Yeah.
That's where I was going with that question. I wasn't clear, I think.
I think for us, and that's what I was saying, like the self-funding, I agree with everything, because I do not like being broke. But I think specifically for me and also Phil, we were involved in a lot of like big projects with people with notes, and they sucked like a lot. So I think for us, specifically trying to find our voice, it was super important that we had control over it. And again, we didn't have many options at our disposal.
Right.
And going into a possible new process where there's notes involved, we've had great people kind of talk to us, and something we've learned is always just like, if the notes actually improve the show, then we're gonna go with it. And I think that's a great like litmus test for everything, because otherwise, it's just kind of like, no. Like we understand we're also entering a space that isn't super familiar with the type of content we're doing. So there's also, there is an awareness where it's just like, you gave that note and it's pretty bad. Like I would watch this and say, these people are liars. I would never watch their stuff. So there's always going to be a bit of that pushback. But
that's an interesting note, what you just brought up. Do you find that because you're coming from a perspective that the network or GEM has not maybe seen before or in a great deal, are they trusting you and trusting your voice?
I think that's NDA territory.
No, we're gonna speak on it. Phil, you made the face. You have to go.
No, I mean, it's more like there is obviously a great, like, huge push right now, this year specifically, for content from other voices, specifically like Black voices. So as much as this is a shakeup to the systems, not just like a CBC, but like anyone, like Canada in general has a problem, I feel, with acknowledging its a non-Euro, a non-white perspective in a way that actually gets into the nitty-gritty of things. But you know, the weight has shifted now. Like creators like us who come from immigrant families, who are racialized, who are BIPOC, like it's just like we kind of have the power in our hands a bit. That's what it feels like. Like, as horrible as this year has been, like there is a sea change happening, and that to me is why it seems like there is a lot of chaos around. But that's because that's just what change looks like. And me personally, I'm optimistic that it will result in better things to come for the future eventually.
Well, I think two things. For me, I've just decided it's January because
Here's a state of mind.
like
right
for January. It's so warm right now for January. There are pumpkins everywhere. I do not get it because it's January, but that's totally okay with me.
So weird.
I think it's interesting because you speak to, like, talking about, I feel like it would, whatever network you'd be working with, you'd be entering, into a white space.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, the question, I guess, is like, these notes are based on their audiences. And so I guess the question really, and like, I don't know if this is like a thing you guys want to speak to or can speak to, but like, I think it's more a question of who are their audiences they're paying attention to. Like,
yeah.
I feel like in that way that, like, they're like, well, this is what women age, like white women age 60 to 70, like, but it's like, do they even, like, do they even know what audiences that look like us, like, I guess. And so I feel like you kind of can't really give notes unless you know what you're, like, really who you're marketing to. And my question is the data there, or have they collected it to make it so that the notes curtail properly to the project? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I can speak to receiving notes in the development of some and it always, like, the notes that we got were always in service to the story. It was actually quite like the positive experience getting notes and things like that. And I think it is a valuable skill to develop, is to learn how to read the note behind the note, as it were. I mean, like, I know why, like, before we started that process, why I was like, all right, but if they give me notes though, right? Like, why I would want to be on my guard and like stand up and fight for a lot of things. Like, we have a young girl of color who's our protagonist. The majority of our cast is color, and we don't attribute, like, we use, like, the real world kind of, like, the visual kind of archetypes for it, but we're in a distant future where there isn't this or a that or a country or this. So there was still a lot that we were, like, getting ready to fight for if we got, like, pushback on it. But instead, every note that we got was like, what's this character up to, and why is this character making this choice here and there? So if there was ever a note that I got, I was, like, prepared for. I was prepared to stand up for certain things. But I mean, like, ultimately, if you're sitting down to collaborate with someone, they're not automatically an enemy. They're not automatically an opponent. They're just trying to help collaborate and fix based on what they understand. And they may not understand everything that you understand, nor you them, right? So I guess Sun Tzu, right? Come in peace, but prepared for war or something wise like that. I don't know.
And I mean, these are notes for like in general, like you get notes on freelance jobs, you get notes all the time from people, but you don't actually have to take those notes. You can just, if someone's giving you notes on something, maybe something isn't right or isn't working, you don't have to take their notes, whatever it is, but you can, oh, okay, maybe this doesn't quite work. That's why they're giving me this note. And you can think of how to change it yourself. I mean, it's your project, it has to work in your head as an artist for it to actually work. If you're just taking notes blindly, you kind of lose whatever that project is trying to say, or so it's a general, just doesn't mean you don't have to take.
Absolutely. Like I've given Denver notes because he'll send me a thing he's working on, and he'll go, "What do you think?" And I'm like, "I think that didn't quite work for me." And he'll change a thing before it and after it, and keep that the exact same. And I'm like, "It's perfect, right?" So there's certainly it's just like until the work is done, it's still in this pliable state, and everyone's going to have an opinion on what that version of done is, but it's up to us to say, I think this is it, and to learn how to understand it.
Or Len will give me a note and I'm like, I'm not going to do any more animation. I'm
tired. I'm going to bed. I'm like, that's also completely fair, man. Yeah.
We're closing in on our time.
But I want Q&A. No, we have a Q&A.
We have a Q&A.
I mean a Q, because we have people that will provide A
for that Q.
We're the A.
How much? This is anonymous too. Cool.
Whoa.
Anonymous attendee. How much was shooting one episode of Next Stop? What were roles? What were certain you had? What were certain roles you had to fork more money to get on board? I'll try, and then also another Q. The key creatives involved. Did you have to send a deck, or was it more a word of mouth and great sync to get them on board to the project? Okay, so I think I understand what this person is saying. I think. Thank you, anonymous attendee. So, how much was an episode of to shoot one episode of Next Stop, and what were certain things you used to fork out more money to get on board, or to get in general? That I guess where you weren't able to compromise on, like this lives and dies because it has to be shot in a bus shelter or something like that. And I'm also curious because I'm wondering if you stole the location or if you had a permit. And then the other Q is, I guess in negotiating, did you have to send a deck to the people that you were interested in working with to get them on board, or was it a word of mouth type thing that got you where you were, in order to get this opportunity?
Yeah. So roughly, I mean, I guess it would depend. I think Beef and Pool are probably the best examples. So that was probably between like the $4 to $6 grand, 4 to 6K. Yeah. And obviously Mosquito was just like shot like super cheap. I would say, generally I would say between 4 to 6, and then Mosquito kind of being like the anomaly, and Duppy being the most expensive, mainly because we got Phil to literally like arrange and compose like a string section because we're not smart. But it worked out.
First time for everything.
And in regards to the cast and crew, I think everyone kind of had, because this was like 2 years ago. So everyone kind of had a static rate. I think a lot of us were like very brand new, with the exception of I think our DP Mark. He had a bit more experience under his wing, but everyone kind of came willing and understanding that the budget was going to be small, and everyone was kind of the first, this is kind of like the first narrative thing that they were really working on. So our core crew generally stayed pretty static and like would be between like what, $400 to $600. Obviously again, we were not paying ourselves.
Oh wait, I think you said 4 to 6 $600,000 per episode, $400 to $600 per episode.
No,
600, yeah.
per episode, but
Yeah.
for cast and crew, in case they were curious about like paying like say makeup artists or like the editor, it was between $400 to $600. Again, a lot of that was actually homie discounts because we just knew these people. Like again, Jordan's the lead actor and he's also the editor, so it's like, yeah, we're gonna pay you once because we don't have the money. And then again, our DP is just like, he's willing to grind it out, and he just liked what we were doing, so he was always willing to do a cut in. Our job is just to be as professional as possible and like again spend money on food because people are not eating.
And then the second question that our anonymous attendee had posed was, in the pitching phase, how did you pitch this? Like, can you talk a bit about the journey, like that journey? And like, you don't have to go into too much depth with what's going on with Gem, but like, did you have a deck? Did you have those things, or did you like have your product and then you're like, this is our thing? Do you like it? Was it word of mouth that like brought the attention to you? Like, how did you navigate that space?
Is this the pitching to get Vanessa and Jordan on board, or is this to like CBT?
No, I think it's like.
I also think maybe in general. I think that person was talking about the CBC, but also in general. Like, I know I've sent decks to people that I'm hoping, like a mini deck even, people that I'm hoping to like have work on a thing that I'm making. So I guess like, how did you navigate that space? I guess RE pitching.
Got it. Okay. Amar Walla, who's our producer for Next Stop, he's come on board. He was a friend. He was Jordan's friend, and we met him at a birthday party during the summer. I believe it was last year. Yeah, it was last year. And he met, and I believe Duppy had just came out. And he was just like, oh, hey guys, I really love the web series. Congrats to you guys. And we told him like, oh yeah, we're working on another one, the last one, which is Pool. He was like, oh, great for you guys. Like, I know somebody that is in the CBC building, and that was Gabe Lindo. And he was just like, oh,
love Gabe.
And just like, I'll set up a meeting between the two of you guys, between all of you guys, just so y'all can meet and, show face. So our intentions of going into that meeting was just mainly to like show CBC that, hey, because we sent them a link to the show, and they were like, oh yeah, please come for a meeting. We'd just like to get to know you guys. So we initially went in just thinking like, we're just gonna introduce ourselves, because once again, we're still new. We only have 3 episodes to our name. And during the course of that meeting, both of us felt like the questions were leaning more towards a pitch. It was like, oh wait, are these like pitching questions? I thought we were just introducing ourselves. And then at the end of that, Pool was cut. We told them we were working on Pool. And they mentioned like, oh, when it comes out, please just send us a link. And then once that happened, once we made Pool public, we sent them a link and they really liked it. Pool, I feel like was well received by a lot of people. That is when the discussions for CBC Gem started coming in. It was like, oh, okay. And then from there, I guess, it was made final that we should put this on CBC Gem.
Cool.
Yeah.
Excellent. That's so neat. And also, so I guess the answer to the question, no pitch deck required for this
no
guy.
pitch deck required,
just because and I want to make sure, especially if this person's asking, they want to pitch something to CBC and make it pretty clear. So a thing that we always, we just kind of go over the broad strokes. We're not trying to waste anybody's time. But like prior to all of this, we were pitching to like different publications that we thought may be interested in featuring. So our, me, Phil, and Tashawn, we'd have like meetings where we would like literally practice like how to pitch this thing. Like, how do we say this in one sentence? How do we go through all the quick beats of this show? Again, just in case, preparation meets luck or whatnot. So we, at that moment, and even still now, like if you were to tell us like, okay, what is everything that Next Stop is about? We'd be able to run through it pretty quickly. So I think, again, a pitch deck is always going to be more helpful than what we did. A lot of it was just kind of networking. Again, I had a prior experience with Amar at my last job. So there was a bit of an element of comfort in terms of him introducing us to other people. But I think in terms of if this person's concerned about their pitches, and also if they're interested, they can email us too, and we can try and get even more granular. But it's just like, again, know what your series is going to be in one line. Because again, you can prepare a beautiful pitch deck and it's going to illustrate everything that everyone needs to see. but then also being able to like get to all the fine, interesting points as quickly as possible and as entertainingly as possible. And I think you'll knock it out the park.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Goes
That's a
back.
good point. Is there any other advice you would have for anyone thinking of developing their own series? Now, after you both, each project has been through that process.
Yeah.
What would you tell either yourselves in the past, if you could go back and talk to yourselves when you started the project, or what would you tell someone who's now thinking that they're going to make a series?
I will leave this mainly to Sean and Phil, but I think for me, I don't have any particular regrets or things I would tell myself. I think the most important thing is, at least for me, is obviously money, and I think it's important to be strategic about this. So even before I even brought up the idea of like a next stop, like maybe in mid 2017 or to Sean, and it wasn't next stop at that time, just like, hey, maybe we should do short films. And then Phil, a year later, I was like taking like maybe like, and again, this is, it depends obviously the flexibility of your funds, but like even if you're making between 40 to 50K, like just taking like 10%, 20% of like whatever your earnings are that you can like flexibly put away, so you can still like buy nice things and obviously like food and whatever whatnot, and then just keep saving that into your savings, so you at least have like a nice base floor to invest, whether it's one episode or not. Because I mean, even all of that didn't really save us from like the headache that was my checkings, but just again, like piece by piece, being methodical about it and money.
Yeah. I guess just learning from the inspirations, really just somebody once said like, oh, I can see a thread from like Aki and Saltfish. And that's actually the greatest compliment, because we're just like, yeah, no, we love that show. We wanted to create more, and we just love her as a creator. So that would be something else. Yeah.
Yeah. Don't be ashamed of your experiences, like whatever kind of like little niche cultural or like social things you have, even if it's a little in-joke you have with friends or a little observation, like get that out there. All of those are stories, all of those are ideas, and then you never know who will hear that and be like, wow, I never thought of things like that. Or be like, yeah, I've thought that too. I've seen that too. Like I've seen that experience. Like, yeah, nothing is, I don't think anything is as like unique to everyone as you may think they are. You know, just like kind of, yeah, know what you want to do. Be smart with your money, and then just kind of go out there and do it. Like, yeah.
Somnius?
I don't know if I have any regrets either, but like
the wisdom you've learned after this experience.
Yeah, everything that I've like failed at has made me the person I am now, like with being able to create the quality of stuff I can create. When I put out my first short film, Cloud Rise, it got onto like Vimeo staff pick and was doing really well online. And then I started to get phone calls and emails from movie studios asking if I had an animated feature. And I said, no, I'm doing live action now. I'm done with animation. I'm doing live action now. So I think before I would have said, just say yes to everything. You have an animated feature? Yes, I'll write it up. I'll send it to you in a week, and then just write it in a week and send it. I would have said to say yes to everything, but I mean, like I'm doing fine now, like not having said yes to things. So you kind of learn from things, and you know what to do when that thing arrives again. Or yeah, no regrets really.
They have a rule in the acting, if any of you like know actors, or that anything you can do or learn overnight is a thing you say yes to. So like if you ask me if I know how to ride a horse, if I can learn it in a day, it's yes. So so it's like that's the idea. That's the thing. It's like if I can do it in a week or I can learn it overnight, yep, I can do it. Elaine, do you have any advice for people pitching? Anything like that?
Yeah, I think it may sound a little cliche, but I think it actually worked for me, is to trust in the process. You are wherever you are. If you have a story, but you don't have other steps, you at least have that story through a process. Anytime I got success, or Denver and I shared success, it's because we followed through with the process of the thing. Anytime I was anytime we failed or didn't hit it, chances are it either wasn't going to happen to begin with, or it was a failing of not following process. So just keep going, even when it doesn't, even when it feels really far away. Just keep doing the work. And then I think one kind of thing that I learned kind of after the success of Story Hive and getting the development with Chorus and Nelvana was, don't get excited too quickly, because it's still a process. There's still a lot of work to be done. It's really cool, like the night of, to jump and cheer and have a flute of champagne or whatever. But I think the excitement, I got really ramped up, and then the process hit me, and I was like, oh, this is gonna take time. So I was like, and then I had to slow down. So I think it's just take that deep breath and keep going through with the process of it all. I think I said process too many times there, but that just means I mean it,
Great advice. We're going to have to wrap things up, but before we do, Aisha.
Yeah, I just wanted to say we have an attendee who said, very much enjoyed hearing you all talk tonight. You are all going to get those millions of dollars. Thank you for your work. Back to you.
Wait, before you go, can you tell everyone about Access Real World?
Yes, so Access Real World is a database. It's the largest database in Canada, where Black, Indigenous, and people of color put their websites, their work, whatever, up, about themselves, up onto a profile. So if you are a person looking to hire a person who is Black, Indigenous, or a person of color because you want them on your set, or want them to edit your film or compose the music for your movie, go there and you will find resumes, and you can search it, and you can hire BIPOC, Black, Indigenous, people of color individuals, because representation matters.
How do they get there?
You go to www.accessrealworld.ca. I hope that's right. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Cheers.
Bye.
Bye.